Hey, this is Troy from Cube.Dweller.Fitness, and today on the interview I have Jacob Hiller from Vertical Jump Training. And Jacob and I first started talking about doing this interview when I started smelling snowboard wax and getting excited for the snowboard season. And he teaches vertical jump training. I did the math and said this must fit so I can get explosive strength. And so let's see where this goes. But Jacob, why don't you give us a little background, tell us who you are, how you got involved in fitness, and why this focus on vertical jump training?
Well, to start out with, I was just a regular kid who, I don't know, regular. A lot of kids get obsessed with jumping high and dunking. It's just kind of this rite of passage that basketball players and athletes get is to dunk. And I just became obsessed with it. And I never really grew out of it, so I just tried different things like strength shoes and all the programs that were out there and plyometrics and stairs and just got little results. And eventually I kind of came up with my own theories. And this is like out of college even. So I'd already played college basketball, high school basketball, and I could dunk. I'm 6'4", so I could dunk, but nothing too crazy. So finally I did my own program for 12 weeks. And at that point, at the end of the 12 weeks, I mean, everything just came together. And I was a trainer as well. And everything just kind of came together. And like, I was getting my head to the rim. I was doing 360 two-handed dunks. I was doing all this crazy stuff. And that's when you go to the gym. And after you play basketball, whether or not you played well, you start dunking. And all the kids are like, tell me how you did it.
Yeah.
And, for a while, I tried to tell kids how you do it. But, after a basketball game at a local rec center, you don't have a lot of time to really, show people and teach people how they need to change their training and change their mindset. But eventually people were like, you've got to create an ebook because this is working for people, this has worked for you. And so I eventually put it down to do an ebook and started making YouTube videos. And all of a sudden, like, my whole training niche switched right to only vertical jumping because so many people were interested and so many people started sending me videos and testimonials. And then we just started going crazy vertical jump training. Like ESPN contacted us,
Nice.
Sports Illustrated,
Wow.
Men's Health. All these people were contacting us, and we've been able to train pro athletes, Olympic athletes, coaches, trainers all over the world. So it's been crazy, man.
That's very cool. And so, as I talked about, my reason for trying to talk is snow sports. And I know, it doesn't take much to think about vertical jump training. Think basketball, volleyball, anyone that's on the court that has to be able to explode and fly with Superman skills.
Right.
What do you think about trying to apply that explosive strength on the slopes? You think there's a fit, or is it just me off in the weeds?
Okay, so when I started this, I was thinking basketball. And I should have been thinking basketball and volleyball because volleyball is so huge in the jumping.
Yeah.
But soon enough, I had soccer players, I had football players, I had wushu artists, I had kung fu people, I had the people who it's parkour. I had parkour people.
Okay.
I had ice skaters. I had skateboarders. I had everybody coming to me, and I didn't even realize how generally applicable these skills were.
Yeah.
Just because the angles that you use and the movements that you make. We had ski jumpers as well, but that's a little more obvious one.
Yep.
But just everything that's involved in vertical jumping is so applicable to almost any type of athletic event where you have the same joint angles. You're using your knees, your quads, and you're supposed to have a high rate of force development. So, same thing with snowboarding. Not only in snowboarding are you jumping, but you're also having to pad and cushion and be reactive in a very similar joint angle as jumping, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. You're getting off the ground and you got to meet it again when you come back down.
Yeah, even if you're like doing bunny hops or going back and forth, I mean, you've got to be able to react quickly. So,
sure.
Not to mention going off a ramp or something like that, but.
Yeah, I'm too old for that. I go and play in the back bowls and stay away from the parks. But still, there's plenty of stuff that you need to jump around and jump off of and get over and get around. So, the other aspect that we talked about is, if you look at snow sports versus court, how do you think you'd train those people differently or train us differently if we want to do those different sports? Would it be the same program and go through it, or would you shape it some?
Okay, so some guys I train, they just want to jump high. They have little thought to endurance. And so we're thinking we want to be able to have that one event happen and you jump as high as possible. And we're not thinking about the fact that you're going to be doing that 50, 100 times. Okay. Whereas with the snowboarder, unless you have an event where you're going off a ramp, you're thinking, I'm going down this hill, which is, maybe not a complete endurance, but I mean, you're still going to be fatiguing to some degree. I mean, you're not just jumping once. Yep. You're going back and forth and you're saying that. So I would probably try and get as specific as possible. So if you know what your hill's going to be, how long does it take you to get down that hill? And approximately how much time are you going to be spending at those kind of snowboard jump angles? And design your workout to that intensity and that duration, if that makes sense. It does. So you're really making sure that you can sustain that same posture, those same explosive jumps for as long as you're going to be in it. Yeah, so I would also switch it up a little bit. At some point, you just need to be stronger. You need to be more explosive. You need to be more coordinated at those specific movements. So, I mean, there's some points where you just train all-out explosive intensity. But at the same time, I mean, if you know you're going to be in that position for 2 to 5 minutes at one point, you also need to be prepared to handle that and maybe even a little more to be comfortable. That's right. You don't want the legs burning halfway through a fun run. Exactly. Yeah, you get off the lift and you take a sick jump and then you're just going to go lay down. So. Yeah. No thanks. So I mean, I try whatever athletes I'm working with. For example, a ski jumper is an interesting event because they don't have a counter movement. When you jump, you have a counter movement. You bend down and you jump. Well, a ski jumper doesn't really have a counter movement because they're just kind of going down in that position. They're extending their legs. So when I worked with ski jumpers, we weren't working with very many counter movements at all because that wasn't part of the equation. Yep. So different athletes I work with, we tweak the training a little bit, but it's the same principles in how to build strength, how to build the movement coordination, and in this case as well, how to build endurance to work with it. Cool. Well, I told you before when we started, I didn't want to focus just on how this would apply to snow sports. So let you just talk a little bit to the people listening about how this really fits to what I see as your really prime market. Tell us about some of the people that have really benefited the most from working with you, and let's talk a little bit more about why your program is so different and how they benefit from it. Well, I think the type of people we get is just such a wide variety. We get a lot of kids who are just excited about getting up, dunking, dominating their basketball team, volleyball team, whatever it is. Sure. We also get a lot of people who are 30, 40, 50, that kind of age group who just said, hey, I'm still going to the local gym and I'm playing ball every Thursday and I want to show these kids what's up, you know what I mean? Or I want to beat my old best, or I can touch the rim again or whatever. So I think what's unique from the very beginning about our program is we didn't try and to be honest with you, a lot of people who put out the programs, they're marketers first. Mm-hmm. They know how to market a program. They know how to use the internet to market a program. They're marketers first. So they put together a program with the idea that they're going to get into the niche. Yeah. And so before I ever got into this marketing, you got to market your program. But before I even got into that, I was the niche. I mean, I was the epitome of the obsessed athlete. And then, I made it actually work for me. And I'm still obsessed with it. I mean, since then, we've bought crazy electronic equipment to test muscles, test muscle activation, test ground contact time, all this stuff. We're still performing tests because I'm just still obsessed with it. I love it. Nice. And so the whole program is really based around being extremely comprehensive. So maybe not everyone's going to be able to do everything I tell them, but they need to understand what is possible to do. I'm not just going to not tell people stuff because I don't think they're going to be able to do it. I'm going to let them know every possible thing they could do to jump higher. And if they can't do some of them, well, they know such and such is a little bit outside of my realm or whatever. Okay. So that's the one thing. And the other thing is I really care about these people. I mean, when I look at these kids or these other people who come to me, like I see myself. I'm like, man, I know exactly what it's like to look at the back of a magazine, see a vertical jump program and say, I think that's going to work for me, and really it doesn't. And then you're disappointed, and now you're jaded for the rest of your life about jumping higher, and you think you can't jump higher. So I just know, where these kids are coming from. So
Yeah, you feel their pain. It sounds like you've really lived through it and lived through a lot of trial and error to figure out what works and what doesn't. And clearly I can tell as you're talking about it, you've tasted flying.
Yeah, well, when you're a kid or when you're whoever you are, I mean, there's all the, what happens is every time there's a little gadget on the internet, all these, everybody gets a hold of it, and the internet just explodes with it. So if there's somebody says something about calves or about glutes or about quads, all of a sudden the internet is just aflame with these new concepts, and like people have a hard time sorting through it because sometimes it comes from credible sites, so they don't know what to do. And a kid, it's even worse because they got their high school coaches, which later on in life I found out, well, these high school coaches aren't exactly the tip top, and maybe they don't exactly know, no fault of their own. I'm not saying they're bad people or anything, but they're doing the best they can.
Yep.
But there's really just not a whole lot of people who I think really understand everything about how to jump higher, because I'm in a position to only train people to jump higher. I only pretty much train people to jump higher. So it's interesting that we're just so detailed into this specific movement and how to train it.
Nice. And with that specialization, like you said, in the fitness industry, there's so much noise. How do you really sift through it? And that's one of the things as I started Cube.Dweller.Fitness is to really, take some time and try to find applicable research, spend time on PubMed, dig through it, and find out what things are working, what's not, and so that you can sift through it. But with your focus on vertical jump training, like you said, you can give that back to your audience and say, no, I've spent a lifetime and I spend full time looking at just how to get higher every time you jump.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
One thing we also focus on is like, we believe, I tell people on our site, I've done this and I've done it myself and I've trained other people and I have testimonials. Well, what does that mean? Maybe I'm genetically, gifted. Maybe these people are just, I paid them, maybe all this stuff. What it really comes down to is as the owner of your body, as the person in charge here, you need to educate yourself and say, this needs to make sense to me scientifically.
Yep.
And not just start, because if you don't, then you're just going to be susceptible to taking something on faith again, and it may or may not work. So, people who are watching this just need to take charge of themselves of understanding the science. And that's what we try and do in the program, is not only tell you what to do, but teach you why you do it. So the next time you hear about something, whether it's legit or not.
Yeah, you know where to judge it from. That's great. Okay. One of the other things we talked about, Jacob, is, for my site, Cube.Dweller.Fitness, a lot of us as we come out of college, we might have been involved in sports a ton as a kid and growing up. And yes, your program fits for those guys, which are often a lot of our readers' kids, and maybe they're coming to my site too. But for those of us, we get out in the professional world, we're spending a lot of time sitting. We're in a cube, us, Cube Dweller. What tips would you have for us that spend way too much time sitting, or maybe we've moved to a standing desk, we're still sitting pretty stagnant? From your experience, what are some practical tips that you could give viewers today that you could give them a taste of what your training might be, and would really help address the problem of sitting way too long?
Okay, well, first of all, we have a unique coaching program. So once or twice a week, or however often is needed, people schedule these coaching sessions, and they come to these coaching sessions, they say, hey, I only got one day a week, or hey, I work all day in an office. And so we customize their program, because maybe today I'll be able to address the majority of your audience for something. But maybe several people will say, that doesn't fit me. Well, they can come to our coaching sessions and we can work with them specifically. So that's something that we've always done.
Nice.
But I'd say, if you're in a cubicle, the first thing to watch is your posture. It's easy to crick your neck one way, crick your back one way. And when you're in that position for 8 hours a day, for 365 days a year, it's going to start to alter your physiology, and alter your muscle lengths and alter everything. Yeah. So, not only to get that right, but to get out of that position every 45 minutes, every 30 minutes and move around and stretch. For some people, if it's appropriate to just go to the water tank and actually stretch out. Actually, maybe people will look at you funny, but to stretch your muscles, stretch your back, touch your toes,
Yep.
to get the blood circulating again, so you don't get that creeps up on you. I mean, sitting in front of a computer is really hard on you.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think it is because you're just sitting, but it ends up being really hard on you.
Well, we're made to move, right? So
Yeah, you think so, but even though I don't work in an office, I still have my mobile office, and I'm in front of a computer a lot too, so I have to deal with it. It's really easy for me to just get stuck right there and not know it, and all of a sudden 3 hours have passed and I haven't moved my head.
Yeah, it's brutal.
So, learning, if you're someone who doesn't have time, you have kids, I mean, you got to learn what alternatives work for your schedule, whether it's like single leg squats, which are amazing exercise, or whether it's body weight activities, or whether you can just, I would recommend to set some benchmarks and say, here's the very minimum I'm going to do every day or every other day. And that way, at least you set a minimum of improvement. You're at least improving the minimum instead of going backwards. And then you can always build on the very minimum. So many people want things to be perfect that they never take any action. So take some imperfect action now and then improve on it.
That's great. I think too often, especially with fitness, we've read a bunch, or we because of our whole history of life, we have so many things that we know we should be doing. And we say, all right, we're going to do this. And you come up with this enormous list of, I'm going to change these 57 things. And you're right, it just doesn't happen. And so pick those small steps that you can do. I love that. Set a minimum and say, we'll at least do this. So that's perfect.
Yeah, pick the stuff that gives you the best bang for your buck that you know is easy to do. Then make sure you do that. What happens usually is once you're actually doing it, you end up doing more than the minimum. So
yeah, cool. Well, thanks a lot for your time, Jacob. One of the last questions I want to leave viewers with is, they've just got a taste of who you are, your background, and your maniacal focus on getting off the ground. If they want to get more interest or more information on how to get involved, what do you recommend?
Well, one thing I'd like to extend to some viewers here, I mean, and for your blog specifically, is if they have specific questions and they want to post them in the comments below, maybe I could do a guest blog post for you or something like that, or you could give them a series of emails addressing some of the stuff. That's a possibility. And you can always go to our site, and we have a lot of information. Sure, we're also selling our manual there, but we also have some good information and a pretty long video about how to jump higher and the science behind it. So they're also welcome to check out that site as well, which I'll just let you provide the link to it.
Sounds great. Yeah, I'll put that. We'll have a blog post with this. So on YouTube or any other video site, look in the comments below. There's a link to the blog. In the blog post, I'll work with Jacob, make sure we've got links to those videos, and so you can go right to it. And we'll have those other resources there for you. So thanks a lot for your time, Jacob. And
no worries. Thanks for having me, Troy. Appreciate it.
Thanks for helping us get off the ground.
All right, man.